everyone and welcome to the vintage side. In this video I will be going through and showing you how I make this particular dress in the middle here from this Home Journal magazine, September of 1948. Now I have this bed valance that I have already unpicked, and I was so pleased when I found this because I thought that the pattern on this was very close to the material they've illustrated here on this dress. I need to go through and organize all of my pattern pieces and then I'll get to cutting. I have read through all of the written instructions given for this pattern, and the first step is to create some additional pattern pieces that are not provided. To draw the neck facing pieces, I take the pattern piece which it will be attached to and I draw that curve out on my paper. I then draw the rest of the pattern piece to the size that I want the facing to be. I usually make my facings around 2 inches. I then cut it out, make sure that it matches perfectly with the front bodice, and then I label my pattern piece with the number of the corresponding pattern, the size that I am making, which pattern piece this is, and how many of these I need to cut, or if I need to cut it on the fold. This is very useful for avoiding confusion in the future if you ever come back and make your pattern again. Let's start with the bodice. I sew 2 rows of gathering stitch at the points indicated on the pattern, and these are the small areas that will be gathered on the front of the bodice. I then line up the front side inset pieces and gather the front bodice down to meet those. If you need to sew around a corner on your garment, leave your needle down, lift the foot, pivot your garment around the corner, lower the foot, and then continue sewing. After the front side insets are sewn to the front bodice, we then need to attach it to the back of the bodice. We sew the shoulder seams and the side seams. Remember to iron your seams after you have finished sewing. Next is the sleeves. Now that our bodice is sewn together, we can attach the sleeves. Firstly, we sew the seams of our sleeves, and we also sew the frill that goes on the sleeve. I have a method that I use every time I need to gather something for my garment. I divide both pieces into 4 quarters, and then I join up those 4 quarters, and then the material that is in between the 4 quarters is gathered down to meet with the other material. I find that this is very quick and easy, and I always get even gathers. After I have finished pinning all of my gathers down to the sleeve, I then sew the frill on my sewing machine and also overlock the edge. Luckily, because I cut the frill for the sleeves and for the skirt, out of the edge of the material, it was already hemmed. And of course, after we finish sewing something, we jump over to the ironing board and give it a press, so that the frill will sit nice and flat. I am just doing a top stitch on the bottom of the sleeve, as close as I can to the edge. To insert the sleeves into this garment, I have pinned the center point which sits under the arm. I've lined up the seam of the sleeve with the side seam of the bodice. I am then going around and pinning equally on either side. So I'll do one pin on the left and then one pin on the right, one pin on the left and another on the right, and I'm working my way up to the top of the sleeve. The reason I'm starting from the underarm and working my way up to the top is because I want the gathers to be at the shoulder if there are any gathers in the sleeve. I don't want them to be all around the whole of the sleeve. I just want them focused at the top of the sleeve. And so by going around and pinning each side, it gives me a nice even inset for my sleeve. Moving on to the skirt. First, I sew the two side seams for the skirt, and then I iron those seams. To create a gathering stitch, I adjust my stitch length to the longest that my machine will do, and then I also loosen my tension, not all the way to zero tension, but a lot looser than it is when I am sewing seams that I want to be secure. And this gives you a very good loose gathering stitch that's easy to gather. To gather the skirt to the bodice, I am once again using my gathering method of dividing both pieces of material into quarters, joining up those points, and then gathering the material in between evenly. Then I sew the skirt to the bodice and overlock the edges. Time to sew the zip. The first step for sewing the zip is to line the top of your zipper with the top of your garment and then mark where the bottom stopper sits on your garment. That is where you will start the seam to go down to the bottom of the skirt. Then we pin the first side of the zipper and go through and sew that on the sewing machine using a zipper foot. Then we pin the second side of the zipper and sew that on the machine. After ironing the right side of the fabric over the top of our zipper, we then top stitch around the whole of the zipper. finishing the bodice. Next I sew on the neck facing, and after clipping all of the many curves, I finish the seam off with my overlocker. After overlocking, I also do a top stitch on the inside of the neck facing. Finishing touches. The last part for the dress itself is to sew the frill to the bottom of the skirt. I have sewn 2 rows of gathering stitch onto the frill, and then I am gathering the frill to the bottom of the skirt using the same method of dividing both pieces of material into 4 quarters, pinning them together, and then gathering down the fabric. Then we sew the frill and overlock the edge. Another trip to the ironing board, and we iron the frill. The last thing for this dress is to create a waist tie. I followed the measurements given in the pattern instructions. I ironed some stiffening onto the waist ties to give it a little bit more body, and then overlocked it together and ironed it after turning it the right side around. And here is the finished dress. We have a zipper down the back. The dress is nicely finished on the inside. I have overlocked all of the edges so that we don't have any fraying. Here is the waist tie. And the little feature of gathering on the front of the bodice. We have the sleeves with the little frills, and we also have a lovely frill at the bottom of the skirt. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or things that you would like me to explain further, please pop those down in the comment section below. If you would like to find me anywhere else on the World Wide Web, I have an Etsy shop, a Ko-fi page, Instagram, Facebook, a website, and a Pinterest page. Please remember to like and subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss notifications of future videos here on my channel. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!